detailed blueprint aiming to eradicate global poverty within a single generation, specifically by 2055. The big question is, can it actually be done? We've gone through this really comprehensive analysis. It weaves together economic principles, social development, trying to see how such a massive task could even be, conceived. So our mission today is really to pull out the most important nuggets, maybe some surprising insights from this plan, and really grasp what it would take.
Yeah, and what's genuinely fascinating, I think, about this blueprint is how it reframes the whole issue. It's not looking at poverty eradication as, like, a checklist of separate problems. Yeah. It sees it as this deeply interconnected challenge, where progress in one area actually creates a positive feedback loop. It speeds up success everywhere else.
A feedback loop, okay.
Exactly, and the overarching strategy they lay out, it's a 30-year plan, runs 2025 to 2055. But it's designed to unfold in 3 distinct, though overlapping 10-year phases. And that phased approach itself is a critical insight. It allows for adaptation, for scaling as things change on the ground.
So this isn't just one giant leap then, it's more strategic.
Yeah.
Phased. Tell us about how those phases roll out.
Exactly right. It's pragmatic. You can't build a skyscraper on quicksand. Yeah. So phase 1, that's years 1 to 10, 2025 to 2035. It's all about foundation and stabilization. The immediate goal, basically stop the bleeding, address the urgent needs, crisis response, and critically get basic infrastructure and the rule of law established. Because without that stability, well, any other investment is just too risky.
Okay, stop the bleeding first. Makes sense.
Then phase 2, that's years 11 to 20, so 2036 to 2045. We shift gears into acceleration and scaling. With that stability hopefully in place, the focus changes dramatically. Now it's about driving robust economic growth, deepening investments in human capital, think health, education, building a population that's productive, resilient.
Right, building on that foundation.
And finally, phase 3, years 21 to 30, 2046 up to 2055. This is consolidation and sustainability. This is the last mile. Reaching the most remote communities, making sure the systems are self-sustaining, funded domestically ideally, and crucially, preventing backsliding, making it stick.
Making it irreversible.
Yeah.
That phased approach really helps visualize it.
Okay, at the heart of sustainable progress, you need opportunity. So let's dive into Pillar 1, fostering inclusive economic growth and productive employment. Sounds like the engine, right? Creating ways for people to work themselves out of poverty.
That's a great way to put it, the engine.
So how does this engine, get started in phase 1? Okay, phase 1. The blueprint calls for massive public works programs. But these aren't just like busy work. Think labor-intensive infrastructure. Building rural roads, irrigation, sanitation facilities. The key insight really is the dual benefit. They provide immediate jobs, much-needed wages, directly tackling that rural poverty, and the source highlights that 80% of the extremely poor live in rural areas. But at the same time, they're building essential community assets, things that unlock more economic activity down the line.
Jobs and assets.
Yeah, and alongside that, a radical expansion of microfinance and support for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, specifically mentioning tailoring access to small loans and business training for women entrepreneurs. The impact there is often outsized.
Okay, so public works providing that initial spark. Then as things stabilize into phase 2, how does the engine really start picking up speed?
That's when you move towards more strategic industrial policy. So countries are encouraged to identify and actively support key sectors, ones with high potential for job creation, for export growth, maybe agricultural processing, light manufacturing, digital services even. The goal isn't just more jobs, it's moving economies up the value chain, better jobs.
Moving up the ladder.
Right. And there's also a big push on promoting foreign direct investment, FDI. Creating stable policy environments to attract that international capital and expertise. It can be a huge injection of resources and know-how.
And by phase 3, are we talking about a self-sustaining, maybe even innovative economy?
That's precisely the goal. The focus shifts. You're fostering innovation ecosystems, investing heavily in R&D, research and development, higher education, nurturing tech startups, building those knowledge-based economies. But, and this is crucial, it also includes a strong emphasis on fair labor markets. This isn't just social policy, it's economic. It means robust enforcement of minimum wage, workplace safety, the right to organize, preventing what they call in-work poverty, where people have jobs but, still can't escape destitution.
That's a powerful engine.
Yeah.
But an engine needs a solid chassis, right? Which brings us to Pillar 2, investing in human development and universal social protection, ensuring people have the health, the education, the safety nets to actually grab those opportunities and weather shocks. What's the immediate focus in phase 1 here?
Phase one, the absolute imperative is getting universal social safety nets established or scaled up fast. We're talking government-led cash transfer programs, for instance, direct to families. And the report hits you with this stat. 773 million poor people aren't covered by any safety net. It's shocking. So these programs provide that immediate consumption floor, prevent starvation, and critically, they help families keep kids in school, access healthcare, instead of having to pull them out to work.
So meeting those most basic needs first, setting up the next generation?
Exactly. And alongside that, a massive push on basic education and WASH. That's water, sanitation, and hygiene. Ensuring every child gets free primary education, clean water, basic sanitation, tackling those core deprivations head on.
Okay. Then what evolves in phase two for human development once those basics are covered?
With those foundations laid, the big goal becomes universal health coverage, UHC, building strong national health systems, protecting people from those catastrophic health costs, which, are a leading cause of poverty. One illness can wipe a family out. The focus also broadens significantly to quality secondary education. The blueprint stresses this shifting from just access to high-quality secondary schooling for all. They estimate that alone could lift, get this, 420 million people out of poverty.
Wow, 420 million. That's huge.
It's a massive multiplier effect.
In phase three, how do these vital systems get locked in, become self-sustaining?
That's where integration into national budgets is just key, making these systems permanent, self-funded ideally, not just reliant on aid, ensuring they last. And there's also a strong focus on higher education and lifelong learning, continuously developing skills for the 21st century economy, keeping the workforce competitive, adaptable.
It really strikes me, though, that all this incredible progress, it could just be wiped out if we don't tackle the climate crisis, right? Which is exactly where Pillar 3, building climate resilience and sustainable resource management, comes in. This feels, non-negotiable. Climate change as a poverty multiplier.
Oh, absolutely non-negotiable. The blueprint calls it an existential threat to the whole project. So phase one actions, things like massive distribution of climate-resilient seeds, drought-resistant, flood-resistant, and intensive farmer training in sustainable techniques, like agroforestry, mixing trees and crops, protecting those rural livelihoods. It's immediate adaptation. And crucially, rapid implementation of disaster early warning systems, connecting all communities to get advance warnings for floods, cyclones, you name it, saves lives, protects assets.
Okay, immediate protection, adaptation first. What about the longer-term shifts in phase two? The bigger picture.
That's where the large-scale energy transition really kicks in. Big, ambitious projects. Bringing renewables, solar mini-grids, wind farms to rural areas. And this isn't just about emissions, remember. It tackles energy poverty, which the report says affects over 1 billion people. That unlocks economic activity, improves quality of life immensely. Plus, major investment in green infrastructure. Things like elevated roads, coastal protection using mangroves, efficient water management systems, all designed for future climate shocks.
And phase three embeds this into society and sort of global responsibility.
Yes, exactly. Supporting national policies for circular economy models. Recycling, waste reduction, sustainable resource use, minimizing the footprint. And globally, it really emphasizes wealthy nations fulfilling their climate finance commitments, helping developing countries adapt to a crisis they didn't really create. It's about burden sharing.
Okay, this brings us to what feels like maybe the most critical piece of the puzzle. Pillar 4. Strengthening governance, rule of law, and equitable systems. Because without this, funding gets wasted, policies just fail, progress isn't sustainable. It's like the operating system for everything else. But how on earth do you start fixing something as fundamental and often entrenched as governance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the blueprint doesn't shy away. Phase one calls for a radical anti-corruption drive, and not just talk establishing independent, internationally supported anti-corruption agencies, ones with real teeth, real prosecutorial power. The insight there is that purely domestic efforts can often get stalled by vested interests. It also pushes for radical transparency, like publishing all government contracts online. Let the sun shine in.
Transparency and teeth.
And another absolutely critical piece in phase one, secure land tenure. A massive, rapid program to legally register land ownership for smallholders, especially women. The insight is profound. Without secure rights, farmers won't invest, they can't get loans using land as collateral, they stay stuck. Legal ownership unlocks so much potential.
So immediate transparency, securing basic rights. What governance reforms come in phase two then?
The focus broadens to building an accessible justice system, reforming courts to be efficient, fair, and crucially accessible to the poor, protecting them from exploitation, enforcing contracts. And a vital component here is progressive taxation, implementing fair tax systems, making sure corporations and the wealthy pay their share. The source points out starkly that the top 10% capture 52% of global income. Rebalancing this isn't just about fairness, it's essential. That domestic revenue is the sustainable fuel for everything else we've discussed.
Right, that domestic fuel is key. And finally, phase 3, how do you lock in good governance? Make it last.
By embedding accountability deep within the system, actively nurturing a free press, protecting civil society organizations, the watchdogs, creating permanent, independent auditing offices, essentially building those institutional checks and balances that ensure government is always accountable to the people it serves, making it part of the culture.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Let's talk Pillar 5, leveraging technology and innovation for accelerated impact. This isn't an end goal itself, right, but a tool, a powerful tool to make every other pillar work better, faster. The accelerator. How does tech get deployed initially?
In phase 1, a core action is digital identity and connectivity, providing a basic, secure digital ID for every citizen, pushing hard for universal access to affordable mobile internet. The insight is simple but powerful. This is the gateway, the absolute gateway to all other digital services, access, opportunity. And alongside this, leveraging that huge mobile phone penetration to rapidly scale up mobile money systems. This makes delivering cash transfers from Pillar 2 incredibly efficient, transparent, and it fuels commerce, small business growth from Pillar 1.
So foundational tech first. As the plan moves into phase 2, how does the tech get smarter, more integrated?
That's when you see the intelligent application of AI, artificial intelligence. Using data analytics and AI to better target aid, predict climate-related crop failures so you can act preemptively, track disease outbreaks before they spiral. It also means expanding things like edtech and telemedicine, using tech to deliver quality education, healthcare consultations to remote areas that might lack teachers or doctors. It bridges those critical access gaps.
Closing the gaps. And phase 3, what are the cutting-edge applications that really solidify this tech acceleration?
Phase 3 looks at things like blockchain for transparency. Imagine using blockchain for unalterable public land registries from Pillar 4, or tracking aid distribution end-to-end, eliminating corruption opportunities, and also the Internet of Things, IoT, using sensors to monitor water systems, energy grids, public infrastructure in real time. That allows for super efficient management, predictive maintenance, quick responses to problems.
This plan is incredibly detailed. 5 pillars. But it still feels like it needs some major forces behind it to actually happen. It's not just the what, it's the how. And the blueprint identifies 2 crucial enablers. The fuel for the engine, you called it.
That's absolutely right. You need the fuel. The first enabler is a grand bargain on financing. The blueprint is blunt. Yes, poverty eradication is expensive, but the cost of inaction, in terms of instability, conflict, lost potential, far, far greater. So it requires a 3-pronged financial commitment. First, domestic resource mobilization. Developing countries committing to that progressive taxation, cracking down on corruption, like we discussed in Pillar 4, to boost their own revenues significantly.
So countries stepping up themselves.
Second, international aid and debt relief. Wealthy nations finally meeting that long-promised 0.7% of GNI aid target gross national income, and enacting significant debt cancellation for low-income countries to free up their budgets.
The 0.7 target, finally.
And third, private capital. Creating innovative blended finance models. Basically, using public funds strategically to lower the risk for private investors, to unlock those much larger pools of private money for sustainable infrastructure for businesses.
Okay, so everyone, developing countries, rich countries, private sector, putting skin in the game. What's the second critical enabler?
It's unwavering political will and global partnership. This plan, it just cannot be imposed from outside. It has to be genuinely owned locally. That requires strong national leadership. Governments in developing countries making poverty eradication their central organizing principle, really embedding it across all policies. It also needs unprecedented global coordination. Institutions like the World Bank, the UN, regional banks, all aligning their strategies, their resources, pulling in the same direction. And finally, it needs a public mandate. A global movement, citizens like you holding leaders accountable to these huge long-term commitments. Because without that sustained political will, well, the blueprint just stays on the shelf.
It stays a blueprint. Okay, so what does this all mean for us, for you listening? This deep dive, it really shows that eradicating world poverty by 2055, It's not being framed as some, utopian dream. It's presented as an engineering challenge, a complex one, for sure.
Multifaceted.
Yeah, but one with this incredibly comprehensive phased approach laid out.
Hmm. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this blueprint, ambitious as it is, it really presents a profoundly optimistic view. A view of our capacity as humanity to solve huge problems through concerted, coordinated effort. So maybe it raises an important question for you to think about. If poverty truly is an engineering challenge with a detailed plan like this and not some inevitable force, what does that imply about our collective responsibility? As individuals, as global citizens, our responsibility to understand it, to demand action, and maybe to support the forces working towards making something like this actually happen.